We tend to think of Simon Peter as this great saint, right? The first pope, the leader of the 12, and he was. But he wasn't always. Before the Lord called him, Peter was a commercial fisherman by trade. And at that time, if you think government regulation of business is a new thing, at that time, the Roman government regulated the fishing industry by selling fishing licenses or the rights to fish in the sea, and they sold those rights to the tax collectors. And then the tax collectors, in turn, marked it up and sold it to the fishermen. And a lot of times, the tax collectors would lend money to the fishermen to buy the boats that they needed to go fishing in. So you can imagine that during his adult life, Peter had a lot to worry about. Worried about the daily catch of fish or lack of it. Worried about the weather and the storms on the sea. Worried about making the payments on the boat. Worried about paying the fishing rights tax. Worried about feeding his family. Even after Jesus called him and he started to follow him, Peter still had doubts and misunderstandings and fears. In fact, the night before the crucifixion, we read that Peter was so afraid for his own life that 3 times he denied he even knew Jesus. And now, in our gospel today, we see this beautiful scene where Peter is in the boat with the other apostles, and the seas are rough and stormy, and the boat's being tossed around, and he is terrified. And then when he sees Christ walking on the water towards him, he's even more terrified. Imagine what he must have been thinking. What? How? How is this possible? And Jesus, though, utters those calming, reassuring words. Take courage. I'm here. Don't be afraid. And Peter replies back in this moment of realization with this great prayer, this great cry for help, really. Lord, bid me come to you. Lord, bid me come to you. He has this great realization that he cannot save himself and that he needs Jesus because with God, all things are possible. So he says, Lord, bid me come to you. And don't all of us have our own problems and fears and anxieties like Peter had? It's funny, most of us, when we meet someone, we have this sort of polite social greeting, right? What do we say often? Hey, how are you doing? But in reality, we don't really want to know, right? We don't want to know other people's problems. And our polite answer back usually is, hey, I'm good. But we know that's not true either, right? Because if we just kind of scratch below that polite surface, we realize we all have problems and fears and worries and anxieties, just like Peter did. Worries about our jobs, our finances, school, relationships, health, faith, or lack of any of those. I talk to people all the time in this role of ministry, and you hear this all the time, maybe from your friends, like, is my company going to downsize? Is the stock market going up or down? Is my retirement fund going to last longer than I do? I hear young people say, how am I ever going to afford my first house in this day and age? Why are my relationships not what they should be? And of course, having all these worries and problems, we tend to go try and find help with them. And unfortunately, too often we look to the world for answers to our problems, right? It's tempting to turn to the bookshelves or YouTube or TikTok for all sorts of advice on how to be healthier and wealthier and happier. But I think as often as not, the only people that benefit from that advice are the ones that are getting paid to give it. In the midst of the rough seas of our own lives, the thing to do is to imitate Peter. The only thing that truly is going to help us is to call out to the person who has our best interest at heart, not his own. The person for whom all things are possible. To hear Jesus calling out to us, take courage, don't be afraid. And for us to cry out in response, like Peter did, Lord, bid me come to you. Bid me come to you for help. Bid me to come to you not for money or possessions or fleeting things, but for hope, for faith, for love, for patience, for endurance, for kindness. Lord, bid me to come not to the advice of men, but bid me to come to you and only you. Friends, let's take just a minute here this morning and try and interiorize this gospel message, if we can. Take a second and just think about all the things that trouble each of us. And then let's together imitate Peter and offer this same cry from our hearts for help. Okay, so this is the interactive part. So when I call out an intention, please respond with, Lord, bid me come to you. Okay, can we try that? Lord, bid me come to you. For times when I am in doubt and am the one of little faith, Lord, bid me come to you. For times when I'm so troubled about my relationships, Lord, bid me come to you. For times when it's so hard to forgive, Lord, bid me come to you. For times when I despair of the state of our country and our world and our church, Lord, bid me come to you. For times when I'm tempted to trust in my own wealth and possessions, Lord, bid me come to you. For every other worry and fear we hold deep in our own hearts, Lord, bid me come to you. For every need at every hour of every day, Lord, bid me come to you.